as many more people have discovered the healing, calming power of nature to concentrate our minds on the gentle rhythm of the seasons, of the growth period in warmer months, and the replenishing, regenerating time of the winter. As a photographer, I deal in light. Photography literally means drawing or writing with the light, and getting outdoors, enjoying a nature walk or exploring with your camera, having some exercise, getting the oxygen circulating and good endorphins to your brain is as good a therapy as any. Setting yourself a photography project, whatever your level, is a really good way to encourage yourself to spend time outdoors, to concentrate your thoughts on something else and to enjoy nature throughout the year. There's the aspect of accountability to yourself, so that you want to see it through to completion, which is always really rewarding. On the day before the second lockdown, and feeling quite stressed by it all, I started a photography project in my local woods to visit and photograph it on one day a month and throughout the year, to record how the woods change with the seasons. So visiting through the winter, there's quite a sculptural quality to some of the plants, the bracken on the forest floor, the textures that you find, everything's bare and dying back. And it's going to make quite a contrast to the days when the bluebells are in flower or the heather starts blooming. It also pins our sights on what to look forward to next, and hems our minds into something that has dependability and regularity. I'm someone who's experienced anxiety and depression, so it's helpful to remember that seeking out and spending time in green spaces assists our brain's neurotransmitters. It lowers the level of cortisol, the stress hormone, and it boosts the serotonin that helps our brain to send healthy signals. Last year, as a lot of people did, I had a first try at growing some of my own fruit and vegetables. My grandma used to say it's in plants' nature to grow, but it still felt like a small miracle when I actually had edible plants at the end of it. Pulling up my first beetroot, I'd witnessed it as a little seed popping it into the ground, and then here it was with an intricate root system, something actually edible and beautiful leaves. It sparked an idea for another photo project. It was such a lovely plant, I wanted to record it as a portrait, and so now I've photographed a whole set of fruit and vegetable portraits from things that I've just grown here. Perhaps you can think of something similar that you'd like to try, whether you've grown it yourself or maybe you've got a favourite tree that you like to visit and could record that in all the different seasons. I'm going to talk a bit about photographing our plants, gardens and green spaces. There won't be anything too technical like modes or apertures. It's more helpful if this is something that anybody could try. It's often said the best camera is the one that you have with you. So whether you use the camera on your phone, brilliant, or if you have a DSLR, that's great too. Let's take whatever tools we have and start exploring. Oh, just while I'm here, don't ever think that you're not creative. Anyone who's ever picked out where to put a houseplant on the windowsill or chosen an Instagram filter, you've made a creative decision. Let's talk a little about the composition of a photo. Look around you for a minute, not moving your head but letting your eyes wander through your surroundings. Our eyes don't see with edges or corners. The peripheries feel more infinite than that, don't they? But bring your surroundings into a camera viewfinder and immediately you have 4 edges, 4 corners, a place where your scene stops. It's not really the natural order of things, so it's our job to help the viewer feel more comfortable with that. One tool you'll often see, for example, is just softening the edges of the frame a little bit with maybe some foliage. Check around the edges of your frame before you take a picture. Is there anything maybe that's a bit too distracting, snagging around the sides or jutting in? Perhaps a twig or a piece of grass that you could move out the way? Or can you take half a step to your side so it's no longer causing a distraction? You may have heard of the rule of thirds. And by that, people just mean the imaginary noughts and crosses grid that you could put over a photo composition to assist in making it the most pleasing to the eye. Our phones or cameras often have this grid as an overlay you can switch on, so you can use it as a real-time guide. Photographers have found that placing subjects on these thirds lines or on the intersections of them where they join draws out a really positive response in the viewer. Let's take a look now at this photograph of Nigella flowers. You can see we've got subject interest along that top horizontal line, on the bottom line, down on the left hand side, and through a diagonal. There's science behind that. It stems from another, very similar compositional tool that artists and architects have used for centuries. It's called the golden ratio, and it's taken straight from the natural world. The golden ratio is very closely related to the Fibonacci sequence, sometimes known as the divine proportion, the sum of the 2 preceding numbers. So 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8 and so on. Which is a mathematical pattern you'll find represented all through nature in things like the way leaves, branches or petals grow on stems, turning with each new cell, so new leaves aren't blocking the sun to the older leaves, or so that they can direct the maximum amount of water down towards the roots. It's there in the spiral arms of sunflower seed heads, in pine cones, seashells, spiral galaxies, even to some extent in the proportions of our bodies. In a really positive way, concentrating on these gentle rhythms and patterns of nature help us to slow down, breathe, and connect with our surroundings on a much deeper level. And it's really exciting to realise that the art we make with a camera can represent that connection too. Everyone takes eye-level photos and they all look a bit the same. There's a bonus to crouching down low if you can, examining the forest floor, the fungi, the debris. You'll notice things that you hadn't seen before, and it takes your outdoor photography experience to literally a new level. Don't forget to look up too, perhaps through the branches of a tree to the sky. Be mindful of your feet being planted firmly, your connection to the earth, the greenery sprouting up around you. Take a deep breath while you enjoy all these different angles. I've spotted a few bits and pieces here on the forest floor that I might just gather up and take home to make a flat lay, the sort of photographs that you arrange all your elements and take the picture from above looking straight down. Let's have a look. You certainly don't want to go disturbing habitat or plucking bits of plant off anything that's growing, but when you find pieces like this just lying on the ground, then that's a really good candidate. Maybe try 3 larger elements down first. Think about the principles we touched upon earlier, the rule of thirds or the golden ratio. And then your smaller pieces can be placed in, and you can play as long as you like, removing, moving or adding to it. Less is usually more, so do feel that it's okay to leave some space too. When you take the picture, remember to try and keep your camera or phone parallel to the ground so that your picture keeps its correct proportions. You might find that the textures and smells attract other helpers too. If the light is low, your camera shutter wants to open slightly more slowly to allow more light in, so tuck your elbows into your sides, steady your breath, and press your shutter as gently and smoothly as you can to avoid any camera shake from the low light. It really helps your viewer if they feel that they could wander right into the scene of your photograph. Pathways are a brilliant tool for this, especially if there's a bit of an S-shaped curve. Make the most of that. Crouch down low so you can lead their eye into the foreground, and then the middle distance, and then the background, as well as left and right. Bokeh is a Japanese term that refers to the out of focus areas of a photograph, the way that the lens renders the background. There's a debate about how it's pronounced. Bokeh? Bokeh? Or you could just call it blurry. In garden photographs, it works really well when the sun is peeking through trees, or highlighting dew or raindrops on plants as fuzzy sparkles of light. It's no surprise that it has its own photographic term, because these speckles of light really seem to lift our spirits. That makes sense to me, as light and water are the life givers needed by the plant, and so I like to think of it as though it's an energy visibly revealed by the camera. Wrap up and get outside early. Enjoy the energy giving of the sun coming up, hearing birdsong. Or wait until the sun is going down and get that lovely side light that gives form and texture to plants as it highlights various aspects. These times of day are known to photographers as the golden hour, because the temperature of the light is warmer than in the middle of the day. Of course, these are the preferred times for photography, but any time of day outdoors in green space is going to benefit you. And although we play with light as photographers, remember that our plants need and enjoy all different kinds of weather, so don't be afraid to take rainy day photos, for example. They can be just as beautiful. Slow down. If there's a plant or a garden area or a patch of woodland that you're drawn to, don't race to move on. Allow yourself time to be immersed in noticing the details. Wander around your scene, check for different interesting angles. Notice where the light is coming from. Decide if you want your plant backlit, where your plant might be more in silhouette, bathed in a glow. Or maybe have the light coming from the side. Take a second to check that you're not blocking the light or casting a shadow into your picture. I have a few book recommendations, so if the well-being aspect of being in nature is something that you want to delve into a bit more, then I highly recommend having a look at these. The Well-Gardened Mind by Sue Stuart-Smith. If you're looking for a psychotherapist's take on how looking after our minds very much involves the natural world, then this is an absolutely brilliant read. Diary of a Young Naturalist by Dara McAnulty. Oh, this is such a poetic book. Dara's a teen in Ireland. He's very much in tune with nature and he writes beautifully. And The Wild Remedy by Emma Mitchell. You might have seen Emma on things like Autumn Watch. It's a really honest account of depression and spending time in nature and using that as a powerful healing tool. It's a very, very beautiful book. So I'm just going to talk you through a couple of the editing apps that I like to use if I'm on my phone. The first one here is Snapseed. I use this one a lot. As with any editing, just use everything with a really light touch so that you cover your tracks and people can't really tell that you've tampered with your picture. You'll see straight away at the bottom that they have their own looks already there. There's portrait. If you don't like it, you just click the X on the left and it reverts to the original. Let's try another one, Accentuate. That gives quite a boost. Again, if you don't like it, just click the X. Take it back to the beginning. So try the tools instead, bottom center. This is my favourite. Here you can go up to the top left where it says Tune Image. Pick what you want to adjust. Have a go at the brightness. Contrast, that's just controlling the darks and lights for you. Ambience is another way of dealing with the brightness levels. Remember, your eye will always fall on the part that's the brightest. So you can try on the left hand side, there's one called Selective, looks like a bullseye. Tap that on the area of the picture you want to deal with. Again, you can bring up the brightness if you need to. You can bring it back down again. You can dial up the contrast. You can deal with the structure. That's just emphasizing texture and detail. And then when you're done, just export it at the bottom, modify it, and that will save to your camera roll. The other one I like to use is called A Colour Story. Both of these are free apps. You can get paid versions, but the ones I use are free and they work for both iPhone and Android. So let's have a look at this little jug of flowers. This one has filters and you can set your favourites at the bottom. So I've set a few favourites that I like. Again, if you go to the bottom slider, you can dial them up or down. Remember, it's up to you. You're making the creative choices. So if it's a bit too much, just bring it back down again so it feels comfortable. You can deal with the curves, which photographers like to use to maybe bring up the brights and dial down the darks a little bit. Normally they choose a slightly S-shaped curve, but you can just bring up the overall brightness like this. Again, contrast, just dial it down if you need to, or bring it back up if you want a bit of a punch. Saturation, you can punch those colours. You can bring them back down if you like it to look a little bit more vintage film style. And then again, go to just save. It'll pop it into your camera roll on your phone. The light might be lacking at some times of the year. Many of us feel that affects our energy levels, but it's a good reminder that in the plant world, that's the time of inner regeneration, of drawing in and conserving energy for the growth season to come. It's beneficial. We're similar in many ways, drawing energy from the sunlight, feeling it's more of an effort to get going when it's dark. Photography is entirely about how we harness the light as well as the shadows. This is why I love it so much, because garden photography in particular fulfills a lovely completeness of how we can deepen our connection with our natural surroundings. look for the light.